Hey, fabulous 8th graders. Here is your video announcement for week 4, February 8th through the 14th. This week, we're going to tackle 2 different topics. One is what are the rights of speech? And the second one is how we can influence government. Let's take a look at 0405. So most of you know about the First Amendment right of freedom of speech, right? You've all heard of that. But what does it actually mean? That's what we're going to be digging into for this lesson. You will notice it is a fillable assignment. There's some vocabulary for you, a little bit about the types of expression that are guaranteed under the First Amendment, limitations to that. You can't just say and do anything you want. And then tackling a couple of cases, Tinker versus Des Moines and Hazelwood versus Kuhlmeyer. When you go into Buzz, you're going to notice that tab 3 is where you're really going to start. I didn't put much in my slide deck on this because it's really easy for you to go in here and look at the different rights of speech, press, assembly, etc., and to put that over here. When we start to get into the limits of speech and the rest of it, it might be easier for you to use the slide deck that I created for class on Tuesday. So taking a peek at that, we will be talking about the rights of speech and about Tinker versus Des Moines. That's one of the landmark Supreme Court cases. And we're also going to talk about Hazelwood, which is another landmark case. And then we're going to get into what is protected speech and what is not protected speech. So I do encourage you to use the slide deck to help you navigate. And then, of course, drop it in the Dropbox. Please do it down here with the plus so that I can better access it. All right. The second lesson this week is how we can influence government. I spent a long time trying to figure out what to do with this one. You will notice it is a quiz because it says fillable notes up here. That said, the assumption is that you know all of this vocabulary. So if you don't, you're going to want to copy and paste that in there so that you have that as a reference, with the assumption being that you know it. We're going to talk about interest groups and the media during class, and then you also are asked to know about the case United States versus Nixon. So when you hop into Buzz on this one, if you notice the vocabulary is throughout, so I would use the glossary on it, and then getting into interest groups. You're going to want to spend some time, I think, really when you get into the Nixon case in Buzz and also the recap. It might be beneficial to do this process and put some notes at the bottom here where it says notes, because those questions are more likely going to show up as quiz or test questions. The slide deck really gets into, in fact, Friday should be a pretty interesting class. It looks at things like lobbying. If you're not familiar with that, how are lawmakers influenced by folks that are either paid to influence them or folks that aren't? And so we're going to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about, in particular, the pharmaceutical industry, because there's some lobbying that's happening there that might explain, for example, why prescription drugs are pretty expensive or why we don't have nationalized health care. We're also going to talk about the media. And one of the things that Buzz neglected was social media, which is crazy in my opinion, because it's used by so many people. I will tell you that after my, hey, these are the things you need to do slide, I did put the information on the United States versus Nixon so that you have that as a reference. I would love to see you all in class on Tuesday and Friday, and I hope you have an amazing week. You got this, nerds.